You say yes when you mean no. You make yourself smaller so others feel comfortable. You read the room before you read yourself. You apologize for existing. This is not kindness. This is not generosity. This is a survival response that has been running since before you had words for it. It is called the Fawn response. And today, we decode it. Most people are familiar with the fight or flight response. Many have heard of freeze, but there is a fourth survival response that is less discussed, and for many people, the most familiar of all. The Fawn response, named by therapist Pete Walker, who described it as the tendency to immediately move toward pleasing, appeasing, and accommodating others in response to perceived threat. Not because you want to, not because it feels good, but because somewhere early in your life, you learned that the safest way to navigate danger was to make the people around you comfortable, to anticipate their needs, to manage their emotions, to become so agreeable, so easy, so undemanding, that you would never become the target of their frustration, their anger, or their withdrawal. The fawn response is the survival strategy of children who grew up in homes where other people's emotions were the primary weather system, where the adults around them were unpredictable, volatile, emotionally immature, or demanding in ways that required constant management. These children became extraordinarily attuned to others, exquisitely sensitive to shifts in mood, tone, energy, able to read a room with a precision that borders on supernatural, and in doing so, they lost the ability to read themselves. The fawn response develops as an adaptation to a specific kind of environment, one where the child's emotional safety depended on successfully managing the emotional state of the adults around them. In homes with a volatile or unpredictable parent, the child learns to track that parent's moods obsessively, to catch the warning signs early, to intervene with cheerfulness, with compliance, with self-erasure, before the situation escalates. In homes with a parent who uses guilt, withdrawal of love, or emotional manipulation as control mechanisms, the child learns that their own needs and feelings are a liability, that expressing them risks the relationship. And so they suppress, they accommodate, they become the child who never causes trouble, because causing trouble costs too much. In homes where one parent is suffering and the other is absent or overwhelmed, the child may take on the role of emotional caretaker, becoming the one who manages the suffering parent's emotions, who provides comfort, who makes things easier, at the expense of their own developing needs. What does the fawn response look like in an adult? It looks like chronic people-pleasing, an inability to say no without profound anxiety or guilt. A yes that comes before the person has even checked whether they actually want to say yes. It looks like hypervigilance to other people's emotional states, walking into a room and immediately sensing who is upset, who needs managing, who requires attention. It looks like a profound difficulty with conflict, not just discomfort, genuine terror. The sense that disagreement will end the relationship. It looks like over-apologizing, apologizing for having needs, for taking up space, for existing in ways that might inconvenience others. Let me give you some real examples of what this looks like in daily life. The person who agrees with whatever opinion is expressed in the room, and then, alone later, realizes they actually think the opposite. They couldn't risk the friction of disagreement in the moment. The fawn response answered before they had a chance to. The person who cannot end a phone call even when they need to, who stays on the line long after they want to hang up, because ending the call feels like abandoning the other person, because their needs always come last. The person who feels physically uncomfortable receiving a compliment, who immediately deflects, "Oh, it was nothing," because being seen positively feels almost as threatening as being criticized. Both require them to exist as a full person in someone else's perception. The person who does everything for everyone, and then wonders why they feel invisible. Because the fawn response made them indispensable to others while making themselves invisible to themselves. Do any of these feel familiar? You are not too much. You are not too little. You are someone who learned that disappearing was the safest form of presence. Healing the fawn response is not about becoming someone who doesn't care about others. The attunement, the sensitivity, the awareness of other people's emotional states, these are genuine gifts. The goal is not to eliminate them. The goal is to add something that was missing, the same quality of attention turned inward. The fawn response developed because the child's interior world was unsafe to attend to. Because having feelings, having needs, having preferences was dangerous. Healing is the gradual, patient process of making the interior world safe again. This looks like pausing before responding, not dramatically, just a breath. A moment to check inward before moving outward. To ask, what do I actually feel about this? What do I actually want? It looks like practicing the experience of a no that doesn't destroy anything. Small no's first. No's in low-stakes situations. No's that prove, through direct experience, that the relationship survives honesty. It looks like noticing the difference between genuine generosity, giving from fullness, from choice, from real desire to contribute, and fawn-driven compliance, giving from fear, from the need to manage someone else's emotional state, from the terror of what might happen if you don't. One comes from the self. One comes from the survival response. And learning to tell the difference is itself a profound act of healing. I want to offer you a first practice now. Take a slow breath in and let it go. Think of something you said yes to recently that you actually wanted to say no to. Hold that moment in your mind. Now, without judgment, ask yourself, what did I feel in my body in the moment before I said yes? Was there a tightening, a sinking, a faint voice that knew before the yes came out? That voice, that sensation, is your interior world trying to speak. You don't have to act on it right now. You only have to hear it. Place one hand on your chest and simply acknowledge, I have a feeling about this. It is allowed to exist. Take another breath in and release. That acknowledgement, however small, is the beginning of returning to yourself. Now, a second practice. This one builds what the fawn response never had, the experience of checking in with yourself before responding to others. Take a slow breath in and let it go. I want you to ask yourself 3 questions, slowly, with genuine curiosity, as if you are meeting yourself for the first time. First question, what am I feeling right now? Not what I should be feeling, not what makes sense to feel. What am I actually feeling? Take a moment. Second question, what do I need right now? Not what anyone else needs, not what would make things easier for everyone. What do I need? Take a moment. Third question, what would I choose? If I knew the answer was okay? If I knew the relationship would survive it? If I knew I was allowed? Take a breath in and out. You don't have to have perfect answers. You only have to practice asking. The fawn response never asked these questions. Healing begins the moment you do. The fawn response kept you safe when safety required self-erasure. It was not weakness. It was intelligence. It was the best strategy available to a child in an environment that required it. But you are not that child anymore, and the environment has changed. You are allowed to exist fully, to have needs, to feel things, to say no without it being the end of everything. You are allowed to be a person, not just a response to other people. Subscribe to Soul Decoded. This is the final video in our pattern series, and in the comments, do you recognize the fawn response in yourself? What is one small no you could practice this week?